on Dragon Ball Z.
What's already happened in the past, but I think that the divergence actually comes with Cassandra herself. Libra of Souls is how did he get that power and what is he trying to do with it, because we don't really find that out in the story mode. Will Soulcalibur meet its expectations with Soulcalibur 6's lore? Find out today. Hey, what's up guys, it is Mark Yoon, and today I'm bringing you another exciting video. So what I got for you today is our community video for Friday. So we are going to be covering two different videos from this week. One is the Cassandra's implications of her effects from the time jumping, and the other is the Azwel lore that was found within Libra of Souls. So we're going to jump right into it today, and we're going to start off with the Cassandra video. So Metal Raptor says, I don't think it's either a coincidence or paying homage when they included Soulcalibur 4's Cassandra in her story, especially since Amy showed Viola with a lot of implications of things to come. So it could be that they're planning on adding more story segments along with later characters at some point. Just for hypothetical purposes, let's take a look at potential DLC lineup using likely characters following the current trend of 3 legacy characters and 1 guest. Season 1, Tira, 2B, Amy, and Cassandra. Season 2, Hilda, Halmaru, Setsuka, and Huang. Now let's speculate on future DLC. Season 3, Rock, a guest, probably Cloud or Tifa, Aeon, Yoon Sung. Season 4, Viola, a guest, Zwei, Algol, or Edgemaster. If the above is true, then Season 4 could include some additions to the existing character stories that Project Soul couldn't have covered on before, as it might have spoiled too much of potential DLC that they may have planned. Since the game already has 2 sword and shield users, that being Sophitia and Cassandra, along with Taki, Xianghua, Sungmina, and Kilik, it is highly unlikely for Patroclus, Pyrrha, Natsu, Lexia, or Shiba to be brought in as DLC, which kind of works out as most people would rather have their predecessors anyway. If it follows on alternate future, then it could mean that Sophitia, Rothion, Patroclus, and Pyrrha have been able to live their lives in peace and harmony, but as potential consequences, that happiness may be the expense at Cassandra's going in her sister's place. Viola and Zwei, on the other hand, may be included, especially Viola, as her weapon may have ties to the astral fissure. There are also a number of ways that Project Soul might implement Viola and Zwei. They could always add them on a later date down the timeline. But since Cassandra's story begins a lot of potential to the time travel into the equation, it is highly possible that the two might travel backwards in time, except that their trip would be more successful than Cassandra's. As for Algol, what exactly is it freedom from Soulcalibur 4? Perhaps he could have an adversary in Viola and Zwei, encountered in the astral fissure, or he might be the very reason that they travel backwards in time if they do. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the subject. If it's what they're planning, then it might also explain some of the character stories seem rather short and uneventful. They may not be complete. There could be something to that, not being complete in the Soul Chronicle, because if you do some of their stories, they get like epilogue-ish stories, like Alpha and Beta after like an epilogue takes place. Like Cassandra, for example, she doesn't actually encounter her alternate version of herself until after you actually beat her Soul Chronicle. And then it goes back and fills in to where that would have happened or taken place. So that's highly plausible that they would also go back and add additional like epilogues or prologues to each Soul Chronicle if those characters are involved in that story. So I kind of agree with that. Caracal says, nice summary. Not a big fan of Soulcalibur 5's story, but I think it'll be better to try and correct it rather than write it out completely. I also agree, but I wish that they would probably, alongside of correcting it, take some time to actually air out some more of the details. I don't want to see the second generation of characters return because I felt that they were really lackluster and their movesets were not different enough from their predecessors to warrant inclusion in the actual game. They felt more like replacements than like the next generation. I think Mortal Kombat does it a lot better than Soulcalibur in that instance. So hopefully, without them being rushed this time, they can take their time to actually just give better storytelling instead of that. And we don't know yet if Patroclus and Pyrrha are actually going to be the new children of Sophitia, because as everyone knows with genetics, that's not really set in stone. Just the fact of Cassandra like talking to Sophitia about it or letting them get married in the first place could be a different like gene structure when they're actually created. So we'll see what happens and we'll see where it goes from there. Fox Alive 17 says, 5 was a potential loss by their end, so this might not be a good way to restart it. But I'm still curious if Edgemaster, if he leads on more than he knows. Edgemaster always knows more. He actually is like a substitute for a narrator in many instances, especially in Libra of Souls. He's kind of there to push the plot forward by connecting what we don't know to what we already do know, especially with conjunction to our characters and the catalysts and the astral fissures. He's the one that sets up the ancients and all that stuff, so it's like he's kind of like acts as a bridge, so I can definitely see that. Emerald Dragonblade says, I kind of feel like I'm the only one who actually liked Soulcalibur 5, except for the story, which I can understand. As with any game, it's not all bad. There's good aspects to Soulcalibur 5. I mean, the endless card battle mode was pretty decent. The character creator is probably the best the series has seen, and outside of like having to constantly download the Cepheus store like DLC stuff, it was pretty decent by all means, but the story was awful. You can tell it was rushed and not much put into it, and also a big factor in that was we got all these cool bonus characters with Soulcalibur 4, and not only did they scrap that with Soulcalibur 5, but they got rid of like a vast majority of our core initial cast and tried to replace them with these like shoo-ins, which were terrible. And they even relegated like Sophitia to almost an Edgemaster mode with Elysium. So 5, in my opinion, is definitely the worst of the series, and I don't think that's really contested, but there are aspects of the game that are enjoyable. SolarFlame95 says, first off, can we please replace our current Cassandra with the crazy malfested one? Laugh out loud, just kidding. Mostly. As for what they might do in the events of Soulcalibur 5 in this new timeline, though, I definitely think that there might be some liberties taken or inspirations from it based off the events of Cassie's Soul Chronicle. Like, for example, maybe they could have Sophie become possessed by the Soul Edge Shard in her body and go all crazy malfested beast mode, similar to Pariah or something like that. Speaking of which, Sophie's children will most certainly get some sort of overhaul if they are ever introduced in a future game. Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well, too. I don't think Pyrrha and Pyra are going to be anywhere near close to what they actually were, design-wise, personality-wise, or even weapon-wise. If they are newly introduced again, they're going to be totally different characters, because a lot of the blame for Soulcalibur's story falls on them. Not necessarily saying that that's warranted, but most of the community like just pretty much hedges their bets and says that like it was their fault, and it made them unlikable characters in the community's eyes. So I can actually see that them changing them completely, and I wouldn't be surprised if they actually do. As far as Sophitia being consumed by the sword, I could see it not really like her being consumed by it, but her going down the path of being consumed by it, and they have to like counter it with Soul Blade. And if Soul Blade possesses her, then we can see Elysium's return from Soulcalibur 5. Because I do think that was a cool concept, but maybe it's something that they have to break her out of and bring Sophitia back. And it would also give Cassandra more of a front role in the next game, and it would bring it more back to bases of her actually still trying to save her sister. So I can probably see that happening too, but let me know what you think about that in the comment section down below. Patriots1112 says, I really only know Voldo's origin, but man, his story is wicked cool. I'm probably going to be covering more lore of other characters in the future, so stay tuned for that. Voldo's definitely on my list of characters I want to delve into, because he does have one of the more interesting backstories in the actual game. Stu Phoenix says, so, is this really a reboot of the entire franchise, or just Soulcalibur 2? Soulcalibur 6 covers the events from Soulcalibur 1 and 2, but there are obviously some changes made, but there's a lot that stays the same, but it's pretty much 1 and 2 that they going over. As far as lore goes, 3 added a lot, so I can see them putting, in the next game, 3 and 4 probably together and covering 3 and 5, because 4 didn't really add too much in the way of story, because it was mainly centered around the Star Wars characters. But I can definitely see them in the next game going up through 5 and trying to, if there is a game after that, be a completely new time or story mode after that. Alright, so now we're going to go into our Algol lore video, and we're going to start off again with Metal Raptor. And he said, if they ever bring Algol back, I hope that his moves are usable in character creation, and that he's wearing actual clothes rather than a diaper. Not impressed face. Laugh out loud. Maybe Algol is like Piccolo from Dragon Ball. While seeking power, Algol separated his sense of humor, which created Azwel. But Azwel was also power hungry and separated his sense of humor, becoming Dampier. No, I'm not being serious. Yeah, that would be pretty funny to actually see. I'm still along the lines of more of a Shang Tsung kind of situation, where like the strings are being pulled and he's doing his part, but for his own means, and I think he's going to betray Algol in the end and maybe try and gather the sword's power for himself. Even though he was promised ultimate power by Algol, I think his plan is that he's going to expect to be betrayed, and he's taking that into account, because he's not a dummy by any means. Ashton Bird says, I'm still hoping for Algol in Soulcalibur 6 though, who knows? Though he would be awesome in Soulcalibur 7. Like I said before, there's a lot that leads to Algol possibly being the main antagonist of the next game. I, once again, am going to stick by my laurels and say that I do not think they're going to add him as DLC, unless it's like a big expansion DLC like they did with Mortal Kombat Aftermath, which would probably come with a hefty price tag, almost like a full game itself, where they would introduce Algol completely to set up the next game. That's a possibility, but I think if that was the case, even though he'd probably be playable with like a battle or two, I think it'd be more as like a testing his power type of thing to set up his plans for the next game. Just to show that like maybe him and Azwel team up, or Azwel betrays him, or Azwel gets ultimate power, or Algol like just like lets him think that he does. There's a lot that can actually happen with that, and we'll go into what if scenarios later on down the road. FoxLive17 says, my thoughts are that I don't think he's being controlled by Algol, at least I think he isn't, but trying out to come back in Libra of Souls when you fight Cassandra, he'll test you to see if you keep the person that you are, or will be the vessel for Algol's resurrection. And yeah, we talked about that in the comment section down below. I can see the vessel, or the conduit, being a potential resurrection for Algol, and I don't think his body will be used, more of a, he's focusing or harnessing the power of the astral fissures and the chaos magic inside of the conduit, and when he's ready to be reborn as himself, it's all that magic's probably going to be used by Azwel to draw out from the conduit, which would be our created character, and put into a vessel, or a created vessel, or Algol's actual own body, or maybe even the swords, and he'll manifest himself that way, using the artificial seed, ultimate seed, that that Azwel was trying to bring to fruition in the whole Libra of Souls. So I think that's a huge possibility. Soulfarer95 says, maniacal laughter. What a thrill to see a human on the brink of death abandon their sense of reason or despair or hope. It's like the sweetest nectar to me. I can never grow tired of the human race. More maniacal laughter. Sorry. I had to do that. Along with everything you mentioned, let us also not forget his infatuation with the human race. He claims he wants to save and cultivate their true potential. Also, you play a side quest, Legacy of the Chosen in Libra, where you unlock some lore in the museum that implies that Azwel is not quite done with his plans yet. There's also a whole dealings with Amy Viola, where they would lead to them down the future. Yeah, I've seen both of those. I just didn't include them in my video because I didn't unlock them at that point. And this goes into what I just said. I can see him like literally harnessing the power of the chaos magic and the astral fissures within you just to withdraw them. So I think he is using us as an experiment, and did like let us defeat him. I'm not sure if it was completely his like path to let us defeat him. I just think he wanted to test our full abilities to see if we had the potential to do so, because maybe perhaps one of the reasons that we have to get Algol is there's a new threat down the line that actually utilizes both swords, and maybe Algol is the only chance that we have to save from ourselves, and then we have to fight him after that. So there's a lot of possibilities we can get into, and like I said, we'll go on to that further down the road. Bob Milape says, the conduit was born in the astral chaos. It's like that quote from Bane. Yeah, the one where like, I was born into darkness. Right, like, that's pretty funny. Ashton Bird says, when I first saw his moveset, I was hoping it was going to be usable for custom characters, and then when I found it was usable, I was very excited. Correct, because bosses are generally not able to be utilized, or bonus characters in the actual created character system in general, which leads me to believe that if we do get a sequel or further DLC, that if we do get Algol, we're going to be able to use his moves as well. I'm not sure if there'll be a watered-down version of them, because sometimes the bosses have different movesets entirely than what they actually let the character use because of balance issues, or maybe they'll just let us not even use that style online in general. But, yeah, I was definitely excited as well. Patriots1112 says, remember at launch how absurdly broken Azwel was? Yeah, I do. He definitely got nerfed a lot, but I think him being nerfed was actually not nerfs to him. I think it was more of other general tweaks that they'd made. like with the reversal edge system, how you can dodge it and how you can break people out of combos with it and stuff like that. I think it was other general maintenance things that actually made him worse of a character because it was easier to avoid some of his moves. Because a lot of his moves with the 8-way run wasn't really even possible because he has a lot of 360-degree like spinning attack moves, charging attacks, and like stuff that comes from behind and all around you. So he was really hard to defend against. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to a close. Thank you for your comments, and again, I will see you next week for our next round of Soulcalibur lore videos and on our next community day. So be sure to make as many comments as you can next week, and I will catch you then. And as always, thank you, thick you. Hey, what's up, guys? Have you always wanted some sweet Mark Yoon merch? Maybe a thick U shirt, maybe a shirt from Squirt, maybe my pretty face with my logo all over your body, or a throw pillow, or blanket, or anything? Well, you're in luck because I just launched my merch store and it is going to be available on Redbubble, and you will find a link to it in my description box down below. It's got a lot of quality content and a lot of good stuff for you to pick up so you can show your support for the channel and just rep Mark Yoon. Alright, guys, as always, thick you.
Next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Next time, we go into more Soulcalibur lore details, going into characters that we have not yet seen before. Will your favorite characters show up? Find out next time.